right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the IPL Fight Club between our challenger, Quantic.Illusion. He is in the orange trunks, and he is playing Terran to the northeast versus his opponent, the reigning champion, ST.Squirtle, currently up one game in this epic best-of-9 series. He is in the red trunks playing Protoss to the southwest.
And the map is Entombed Valley. This is a map that Protoss players have historically liked very much, especially against Zerg players, because they've been able to cut off third bases so easily with two-base timing attacks. That's kind of changed recently as Zerg players are figuring out, wait a second, I don't have to move out on the map. I can just sit back and defend and play passive, and Zerg players are turning it around. Against Terran players, it's a little bit different. We've seen some very epic games here, notably in GSTL between StarSquirtle's opponent parting, or teammate parting, and his opponent, Marine King Prime.
Indeed we have, and wow, just even putting the words parting and Marine King Prime in the same sentence. Like, can we just have that now, please? Like, no, we're going to watch Squirtle vs. Illusion, which is a great matchup nonetheless. All right, so having analyzed in an expert fashion the previous game, what do you think the transition out of throwing away all your SCVs actually is, and what kind of strategy do you then decide to switch over to?
I think we're going to see something similarly decisive out of Illusion.
Okay,
and
that's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
Well, okay, so yes, decisive, and I'm trying not to code cheese or anything like that. No, I really believe though that Illusion is going to try and hit some sort of a big two-base attack, and it actually looks like he's going to proxy a barracks here.
Yes.
So a two barracks at the very beginning of the game. Maybe he just wants to try and put on some pressure and end things early. But I would expect him to do something two base, try and end the game early, and not play super late game against Squirtle.
Yeah, well, I mean, he can poke here, he could punish any kind of fast expand, which we'll most likely see here from Squirtle. I mean, he's gone Cybercore. Mostly, I would imagine, from this position, we would just see him go straight into Nexus, and I'll be surprised to see anything else from him there. But we will find out sooner rather than later. There goes the scout. Does he go to check for the proxy? He is not going to see that, so that's a useful little tidbit here for Illusion. And of course, if you've got a proxy at barracks at this stage, there's no doubt you're going to try and apply some pressure. We'll see if he can pull it off. And wow, it looks like it's just going to be a lot of, well, it's going to be a lot of Marines coming out here. That probe isn't getting out. Doesn't scout the reactor coming down. So that's, once again, useful info. So yeah, it's going to be a big Marine and most likely Marauder push very early on.
Yeah, we'll see what he invests in early. Some players have been doing two barracks, even with the extra barracks hidden out here with quick stim or combat shields, or maybe we'll just get that concussive shell quick push. He has the gas for it, and it is going to be a concussive shell push. What does Squirtle have coming up back at home, though? Looks like all indications are, once again, a one-gate expand.
Yeah, it's pretty much guaranteed at this point. There we go. The Nexus is now coming down. Well, I don't know, 2-Rex has been, that was a classic strategy, but most people seem to believe that 2-Rex against Protoss just isn't very good anymore, and if you do it, unless you proxy it and you get something very sneaky in Indeed, it's not a good idea. You end up being too far behind. I mean, look at the timing of the Nexus right there, plus the investment that's now being put in here by Illusion. He's got to do significant damage to make this worth it.
And, does catch the Zealot out in the open. Does a little bit of additional damage there. Now the Stalker is going to be able to kite against this. No! The Marauder says, no, thank you.
He got stuck in a little chasm there, though. He could have actually taken that out. That would have been a nice little pickup if you'd been able to take out the Stalker as well. But the problem he's now got, of course, is that his reinforcements might end up getting cut in half, and they are actually at the top of the map there. We've got an elimination, as we saw on the minimap, Marine taken out. Now the pressure comes in, and will there be enough to do damage here?
We'll find out. There are a couple of Marauders with this.
That's
that
pretty good.
Alone is a pretty good attack. Let's see here, though. Warp Gate just coming in. The first couple units are going to make their way out.
Can he deny the Nexus? That's crucial. If he takes the Nexus out, then this is totally worth it. The question is, can he force a cancel here? Is it going to cancel? He's not going to do that. All right, so the shields are now down. Can he break this, more to the point? If he can, if he brings this down, if he keeps that bunker up, then this is a fantastic attack.
Well, the bunker is well underway. Now we do have a few workers pulled off the line as well for Squirtle, but he can sacrifice a couple of those. He has an additional base over his opponent, and it looks like he does have enough units to kill the SCV that was constructing the bunker.
Indeed.
Oh boy.
Marauder comes in from the back right here. Good micro will allow him to actually break this down, but he hasn't killed the Nexus. And that's really what he was looking to do here by the looks of it. Another Stalker falls and another, but it's not going to be enough. This is going to fail. Squirtle has got this locked down quite nicely, and that puts Illusion in a horrible spot going forward.
Yeah, so Illusion's backing up, but he has not expanded. If he had thrown down his expansion during this, he may have been all right, but it's just starting now.
Yeah.
So that supply deficit is going to be made up very quickly.
It's going to be made up super quickly, considering the Chrono Boost that will now be able to go in. You can't really follow this up with anything yet, and he's going to try and push forward here. He'll do a little bit of damage, takes out one Stalker, tries to micro the other, second Stalker down, but that Marauder's going to end up getting picked off at this stage if he's not careful. You can't really continue pressure from this position. He started Stim, so he's not going to attack again, really, until he gets Stim. So there's this big window where it's going to be nothing but Chrono Boost into both Nexus, get this huge economic lead.
And how Illusion follows this up is of great interest to me, because does he decide to say, okay, well, that happened, I'm going to try and double expand, macro my way out of this, just play for that very, very late game, or is he going to try and do something a little more aggressive? And there's 2 additional barracks, total of 4.
That kind of counts, yeah. I mean, it's close enough at any rate. He keeps the proxy barracks in exactly the same position. He's gathering up. It's surprising that he would go in again. I mean, this shouldn't really do anything, considering the number of sentries that are there. This should be force fieldable. This should be blockable off. He hasn't got Stim. He does have Marine Shield, which is great, no doubt about that. But I don't know. Maybe Illusion just wants to keep Squirtle honest, make sure that Squirtle's not just nuking all of his Chrono Boost at the Nexus, getting huge amounts, and make him just a little bit more paranoid. But
that's possible, yeah.
Even then, though, you're still going to have to wait for Stim, really, to do anything. And by that point, I've got to say, well, you don't have Medivacs, well, force fields.
And there's that supply gap we were talking about. Is made up very, very quickly. Now, in fact, Squirtle just a little bit ahead, as he does have additional workers on there as well.
Indeed.
And as we can see, once again, investment into engineering bay. So Illusion prioritizing his upgrades rather than prioritizing his Medivacs for the second game in a row.
It's an interesting idea, honestly. I'm intrigued to see how it turns out for him. We've got the Immortal now on the way here for Squirtle as well. This push is going to go in. It is obviously a timing with Stim, as you can see. If he gets up the ramp, then this could be successful, but the question is, can he pull it off? Here comes the warp, and he's trying to bait force fields here. Hasn't happened as of yet, and wow, Squirtle with astonishing patience there. He is not going to knee-jerk with those force fields. He wants to wait for the Immortal, and he'll have it, assuming that Illusion even bothers to go in here. I mean, he's backing off, he's going to group up in the center, but does he bother to go for the push at this stage? I think perhaps the time has passed.
And especially now with that Immortal out there, and that can chew through Marauders very quickly.
Yep.
And now, as we can see, Squirtle has a great read on what his opponent is doing. Only now do we see that factory coming up. Only now is the threat of Medivacs even going to be a reality.
Slow.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the 11-minute mark, and the factory's only about 2/3 of the way finished.
Now, what is Illusion doing here? He's just going to poke it once again. He's got the scan. He knows the unit composition here. Second Immortal is going to be finished very, very soon. I don't know. I mean, if he can bait force fields, maybe he sends a couple of units up here and that. He wants to try... I would have thought he would want to try and kill sentries there, but he actually focused on a Stalker.
Yeah, so not a lot of damage done. As we can see, there's still plenty of energy to go around on the available sentries that are sitting there. So now that with the second Immortals up there, now that Illusion threw away a few forces, he's going back. Oh, out of Squirtle, though. I like this. Not going down the Colossus route, already starting with the Templar Archives.
I'm liking it, particularly bearing in mind that you've got this big, heavy Bioforce. I mean, going straight into Storm here is actually an option. Could go for... He could go Zealot Archon, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and he hasn't got charge started, so, you know, it wouldn't surprise me to actually see quite a lot of Storm being used here, especially bearing in mind the Medivac count's going to be lower because of how delayed it was, so Storm becomes super effective at that stage, and there it is.
Yep, 2-base Storm is very, very fun. We've seen Squirtle himself actually use it to great effect in Team Arena Challenge 2. He was actually able to bait forward a lot of forces out of Terran players, notably on a Taldrum Ultra game. I forgot who his opponent was. Every time you try to think of that one game you remembered, you always struggle and forget
player
it. So.
X.
Yes. Well, that player...
elusive Player X.
Yes, that mysterious player really suffered, let me tell you.
Well, one of these days we're just going to see... Well, never mind, hold that silly thought. We're going to talk about this instead, and that was good baiting of force fields, honestly. I mean, obviously it blocks the forces off, but he used 4 force fields to trap 2 Marines, which is a little bit overkill considering he's only sitting on 4 sentries, and now he's actually coming up the side here. Scan goes down to reveal that position and spots a Zealot coming in. Interceptor cuts the reinforcements down the middle. Speaking of reinforcements, there's a hell hell of a lot coming in here from Illusion. But Storm is about to complete.
Yeah, 2 seconds away, 1 second, and done. And if Illusion was splitting his forces up and running through 2 attack angles, that would be one thing. But now that he has all of his forces grouped up, a couple of force fields behind him, and he will get wrecked by storms.
Yeah, push is coming out right now. Will he be able to get a good angle to avoid most of this storm? Storm comes down, not a huge amount of damage done by that. There's the stim forward, needs to take the sentries out, needs to take the Templar out. Can't do either of those at the moment. And as I pointed out, with 2 medevacs, Storm's attrition damage is just huge.
That is very true, especially with that additional stim that was in there. I mean, all the energy on the medevacs is going to be essentially gone. We do have 2 more sitting out in the middle of the map, but they haven't started to reinforce forward yet, and Illusion is certainly going to need that. Now, to his credit, Squirtle did invest in another expansion and some expensive forces with High Templar, so he's a little bit behind on supply right now, but his quality of units is quite a bit stronger, despite the fact, actually, that he has no upgrades.
No, he doesn't. I was going to point that out, actually. +1, I believe, is done for Illusion. Yes, it is, and +1 armor as well on the way. Armory to follow that up, and Ghost Academy on its way too, and a second engineering base. So this is going to be nice here, but what? Why?
Well, here comes Illusion. He is putting a 3rd base down behind this, along with his armory for continued upgrades and a Ghost Academy, and doing a nice job of baiting some shots out with the factory, but oh my god.
You know what really isn't a very good counter to Storm? SCVs. You know, actually, SCVs aren't a good counter to a lot of things, but I can see, obviously, adding meat to the force here, but Storms will just rip them to shreds. It essentially... The SCVs might as well not even be there as a result of that. So I'm not really sure what Illusion's plan is here. It's obviously not working so far.
Well, he does a good job of avoiding the first couple of storms at the very least.
Yeah, he's certainly quick, there's no doubt.
But Squirtle has started to feel confident enough to move out on the map, and it looks like Illusion wants to engage this. That was a pretty good engagement for him. The Zealots made their way forward.
Yeah, that was more of a mistake actually by Squirtle than anything else. I think Squirtle realized as the charge had started that this was not going to work out well for him, so he loses 5 to 6 Zealots as a result of that. But what is the risk of having your army sitting in the center of the map for a long time? Well, the answer to that is the potential for Warp Prism harass, and we're going to be seeing that by the looks of it from Squirtle momentarily.
Yeah, and there's the robotics base, about to say right afterwards, so he will be able to transition very quickly. Of course, he may be able to get Illusion to overcommit into these medevacs. We already see that he's producing ghosts for this, but of course he's going to need that Viking production in the relative near future.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's seen Templar, so he's thinking, right, well, there's obviously a window of opportunity here where I could just use ghosts and not use Vikings, so my force composition could be quite nice. But the problem with that is that you can occasionally get caught out by the tech switch. You're thinking, oh, I've got more time than I really have. We'll see, and Illusion will no doubt keep an eye on that. But now we have some aggression coming out from Squirtle, who's been playing nice and safe and slow thus far. Let's see how it turns out.
All right, dashes forward with a few of the... Yeah, keeping the one force out there just to draw the charge. Really well done.
That is beautiful. That, on the other hand, is also beautiful. But, you know, that is a really nice move. He knows that he's up against a really heavy charge look for, so bait the charge. Squirtle runs right into it, wastes the charge on 12 plus Zealots on a single Marauder. It's ideal. It was unfortunate he wasn't able to follow that up.
Yeah, it does get one storm out of those Templar as well, but as we can see, there's plenty around. They've got plenty of storms to give, so now Squirtle finally adding on a couple of ghosts, 3 of them already on the field, going up to 5. We talked about the super high ghost count that a lot of Terran players are using. Oh, and Squirtle's attention was elsewhere, so Illusion is able to pick off a couple of units there.
Yeah, and those storms are not so good at all. The Ghost runs through it, but Ghost has high HP, he cannot for Storm, and there we go, more aggression coming in. It's surprisingly unwilling to commit, considering he threw 20 SCVs at his opponent. I have to wonder if he was faking it, actually. I really do. It's like, oh, it's another all-in coming, like last time. So I think maybe he's metagaming his opponent pretty well, but oh, that's not something we see so much in the metagame, but my god, is it still effective.
Wow.
Super Storm drop coming down right there on the natural. Warp Prism goes down, so do the Templar, but let's see how many workers lost. Not a bad little drop at all.
Yeah, 13 workers killed, and it was a worker lead for Illusion heading into that. So now he's sitting on 58. May not be the worst thing in the world because now he can actually just recommit to more forces. He has triple producing them at the moment.
Yeah,
though, so
I mean, he's pretty close to max, actually. So I have to wonder if Squirtle just did him a little bit of a favor there, though I don't believe anyone intentionally wants to lose that many workers to Storms.
No.
But, you know, it happens. And upgrade-wise, this is actually a nice timing. He could go in right now and he'll have an advantage over his opponent. So I would like to see this 2-2 timing push come in from Illusion, and he looks like he's going to try and commit to that. But Squirtle being a little bit evasive, doesn't want to engage before +2 completes for him. Let's see if Illusion can actually nail him down.
Now, what Illusion doesn't have are Vikings. And unfortunately for him, there are a couple of Colossi here. Hits a few with EMPs up the back. That actually takes out a lot of forces, and it looks like he may be able to push forward. Kills the Archon right away.
Yeah, there's no Observer there either, which is really kind of a big deal. He couldn't do anything about those ghosts whatsoever. The Archon goes down before anything happens, and while he's having a few problems here, and that was a nice storm on the left flank, I don't know. It's still a case of, oh, there's Colossus. So
that's right.
Well, that was really nice, but Colossi.
And that happens, especially sitting there on the high ground like that. Squirtle was in a great position once he backed up. When he was on the bottom here, Illusion certainly had his chances, but no longer. Yeah, a little bit of an error perhaps from Illusion, just deciding to overcommit to that attack up the ramp again. He loves the ramp against Protoss, and you know what? I don't think he should love the ramp. You know? Well, Observer Speed is coming out now for Squirtle. Kind of interesting, but he needs something to do with some resources that he has available. Illusion. Oh, that's a full stim. If he doesn't commit, he's losing a lot of energy on his medevacs. He is. EMPs go down at the front line right there. Let's see what else we can actually see from that. And that is a good EMP, actually. But can he follow it up? Can he get to those Colossi? And no, he cannot. Squirtle is fast enough to get out there, but oh, wow, the force is melting here. More EMPs landing on the Immortal there, and that is no fourth base for you, I'm afraid. And Squirtle, curiously enough, was taking 2 bases. Oh, yeah, I was going to say 5th base, but losing some forces there, unfortunately. Illusion trying to recommit to this. I don't know if he has enough to attack into that. No, he shouldn't. The problem is he's been stimming so much. I mean, look at how worn down his troops actually are. They're pretty battered and bruised. Yeah, look, there's virtually no energy on any of those medevacs hanging above, so enough to get this back up to almost full one more time, but that's certainly going to be all. But Squirtle, yeah, like we were saying, taking 2 bases, yeah, that's nice, actually. I thought, oh, it's a 4th base. Hang on a second, that's a 5th, isn't it? So that's a nice little move here. Illusion is sitting on 4 of his own. Yes. One of those being a planetary fortress, so the standard 3 orbital commands into that, and there is the re-expansion coming out from Squirtle. Squirtle playing very passively here. He has only used the Warp Prism once, and he did reasonable damage with it. There's a ton of Templar on the field. Yeah, there are. Wow, 8 right now. So, and a couple just became, 4 of them, in fact, just became 2 more Archons. So, wants to add those into his composition, but we are moving towards that ultra late game. 3-3 just finishing up. Yeah. I mean, 3-3 finishes for Illusion and has already finished for Squirtle, or at least it will in the next few seconds. So, it's now is the time when Terran starts to struggle, because what do you do between those constant tech switches? Well, you should ask Tasia, because he's got it figured out. But he's about the only one right now. Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's very easy to switch between Colossi and Templar. Yes. It is not so easy to switch between Ghost and Viking. They have some very limited uses, Vikings specifically. If you end up with too many Vikings, then you have a problem. But here it goes once again. The Archon's buffering damage at the front, and there are a ton of Colossi and not enough Vikings here. And Illusion getting massively punished as a result of not having enough anti-air. Ugh, it's ugly. But he doesn't manage to stim through. He takes another Colossus out here, and this is a gnarly battle. Yeah, it is. He's going to get cleaned up, but he went through most of the Colossi, so both these guys kind of in a slugfest right now, just punching each other until unit cost trade we're looking at here. What's the resources lost, actually, at the moment? Let's see. So that's 21,000 to 19,500. So pretty close. Squirtle a little bit worse, but of course he had taken some earlier damage. That's very, very true indeed. Now he needs to get those medevacs fixed up. He's got a hell of a lot on red health. Not exactly a good situation to be in. So where do we go from here? Well, we've got Templar warping in, but is he going to turn those into Archons or not? We're not seeing any more Colossi coming out, and he's also looking for shield upgrades here as well, which would arguably be great for Archons, of course, but with that many Ghosts on the field, that's going to be rendered fairly worthless. Yeah, that is right. So you were talking about having to choose between Ghosts or Vikings. Well, he's just choosing both right now, but the problem is that's going to limit the amount of DPS this army actually has. Yeah, because if there's no Colossi on the field, the Vikings are basically useless. Ghosts at least can EMP, so even if there are a bunch of Colossi, no Templar, they can at least be useful there. And they actually do fairly high damage against light units, so they have a tendency of tearing through Zealots. Dark Shrine on the way down here, and bear in mind he's already got the ability to make Archons, so he will decide to use this for Dark Templar. And as we can see, Illusion, I don't believe, has a 5th base up yet. No, and Squirtle does. Even though Squirtle was a little bit down just a second ago, he's going to be able to remax very, very quickly, especially after the next big engagement.
Oh, yes. Viking count is now pretty damn high, as is the ghost count, but yeah, your concern is valid here because we're getting to the point where armies have to be of a very precise composition in order to be super effective. You don't have an upgrade lead anymore. That's all done. That stage of the game is over. So you have to make sure that your force composition is great and your engagements are great.
See if he can get just those sorts of great engagements here. With these additional 4 Vikings, it's going to be up to a total of 17 here in a second. There's one Colossus, and that's it.
That is actually a crucial error, I feel. That's a lot of supply sunk into that. We're looking at 200 armies, at least we will be momentarily. So I'm not convinced by that decision. And I think this is going to hurt him pretty damn badly. Of course, he'll be able to land them, but at the end of the day, they're also upgraded and they suck on the ground anyway. So I'm not convinced.
Hits a couple of EMPs there, but of course they were all zealots. Now, Chargelots, of course, it is very nice to take out their shields, but he's going to need to get some of those valuable casters as well, and just hasn't been able to get them quite yet. Colossus is going to go down, but you know what? Squirtle's okay with that.
No, Squirtle actually keeps it alive with about 2 HP remaining, so it lucked out just a little bit there. It will, of course, die quite soon to 17 Vikings, but here comes the push, and once again, SCV's in the mix here. Well, that's one way of thinning out the Viking count, I guess. We're just going to sit under that, and it's a lot of wasted gas, unfortunately, and now the army getting stormed into oblivion.
Yes, it is. And at the same time, there's actually DTs inside of Illusion space going after the planetary fortress,
missile turret,
and it's going to go down.
Oh, no missile turret. Why? That's a terrible, terrible thing, and really hard to watch. But there you go. Illusion now getting punished hard. The Colossus comes back from the dead to deal more wrathful vengeance.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good game.